What's up, Northview students, life groups? It's great to be with you guys tonight. I hope you guys had a blast. We've had a couple crazy weeks. We had spring break, and then you had Easter, and then we had Rowdy Night, ending the trifecta. I hope you guys had a blast at Rowdy Night. We started our full send series. And guys, we just wanted to take some time during this series to do like a little bit of a deeper dive. So from time to time, Jude and I would love to just spend some time digging a little deeper into what we talked about over the weekend. Yeah,
like a 12-foot pool.
Deep. Okay.
6 feet or like 12?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I've got a question for you, Jude. How are a tick and the Eiffel Tower the same?
They're parasites.
You just ruined my joke.
I know this because I just had a parasite all last week.
Did you really?
Yes. It was bad.
Wow. Why did you eat a parasite?
It was either from being in the Dominican Republic with some students on a go trip or the Chick-fil-A we had in the airport.
No, it wasn't Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is perfect. It is Jesus chicken. It's holy and ordained. And if you got a parasite from Chick-fil-A chicken, it's because God was trying to.
There's probably
tell you
some
something.
deep-rooted sin in my life. And
we don't have time to go into that deep dive. But hey, this past weekend, we talked about the fact that God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And we talked about Moses and how God called Moses, even though Moses felt so ill-equipped, so unqualified for the task, God still chose him. And I know both of us can really relate to this, even just in our calling to ministry, not feeling qualified, and we can talk a little bit about that. But, I think one of the biggest ways that Satan can lie to us and tell us that we are not going to be called by God because we're not qualified is he uses our past, and he uses the mistakes we've made. Uses the trials and struggles that we've been through to try to make us feel like, well, I'm unqualified, therefore God won't call me. Mm-hmm. And we saw that with Moses, right? Moses kills an Egyptian just takes him out, like goes just out of nowhere, kills this Egyptian in his anger.
Like he pulled up in the wrong hood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then he tries to go to his fellow Israelites. He's like, yo, I'm on your side. And they're like, are you going to kill me too, right? Like they bring up his past. And, in a very real sense, guys, like Satan is constantly trying to use our past. And Jude, I'm sure that Satan's tried to use your past to tell you, hey, no, God isn't calling you to this. You are not able to do this because of something in your past.
Absolutely. Can I tell you that even after over a decade of walking with Jesus, every single day the enemy tries to use my past to tell me, hey, you're not good enough. Why are you still pastoring? Why are you doing this? And what's funny enough is I believe that we live in this tension, and sometimes when we start walking with Jesus, we can get on fire and believe, man, God uses people, God uses people, God uses people. But we also can't forget that there's a very real war out there where the enemy is using people as well. Like the enemy will use people as well to try and get between and build this wall between us and God, build this wall between us and our Godfidence. And I've seen that so many times in my life. I mean, all the way from being saved when I was 18 to a year after being saved, trying to answer the question, okay, now that I have this relationship with God, I'm starting to figure out what am I supposed to do with my life? And God's like, hey, I want you to go from being a rapper to singing and writing like contemporary Christian songs for the church. I'd never played guitar, never had played an instrument or sang or anything like that. My grandma says I sounded like a dying cat whenever I practiced. And just this kid, I didn't grow up listening to that kind of music. I didn't wear Vans, and I just did not fit the scene of stereotypical worship leader back in the day. Spiky gelled hair, wearing the jean jackets. That was not me. And so it was this moment where God's calling me to step into something so unfamiliar, something that I didn't even have giftings for. A lot of times, like, that's where I see God work the most in my life and in other people's life. And in Moses' case, where he doesn't think he's good enough to speak. He doesn't think he's good enough to lead. I didn't think I was good enough to sing, or I would ever be good enough to do X, Y, Z. But what happened was because I didn't have the gifting, it allowed God to develop my heart first, while at the same time I was developing the gifting and learning the gifting. And so I'm actually more excited and more in favor of when people step into things that they're not naturally gifted at, because it requires you to build a true heart foundation that's with the right heart versus a foundation that is built on your gifting. Like, that's where pride can get you. And so for me, like, I've seen God do that so much in my life, even seen him do it now as I've stepped into this new role as a student pastor outside of the creative world, where I'm like, I've never done this before. And it's like, that's great, because that means, Jude, you're not going to do it. I'm going to do it through you. And I think that's just how God operates. And we see that in Moses' life.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we just see it all throughout. I mean, guys, if you follow Jesus, God's wanting to use you.
Yeah.
And I mean, we look at this story, and God is like literally telling Moses, I want to use you. And Moses is going, no, God, I can't do
anyone else,
because I'm not qualified. This other Israelite dude, like they all know me as a murderer. Like, and so Moses is elevating what other people think about him rather than what God's calling him to so clearly. And guys, that's the problem with, if we let our past define us, we can start to ruin our own future. Because when we start focusing so much on our past, it creates all these anxieties about the future. Like, well, because I was this way, I'll always be this way, or because I did this, I'm always gonna just continue in this trajectory. Even though God's like, no, I want to use you, guys. God used teenagers more than anyone else. Like, these heroes of the faith were the most unqualified of their family or their group. Their social standings were often so bottom of the totem pole-esque. And so, like, if you feel unqualified, great. Like, God's like, yeah, I'm going to qualify you. I love Psalm 119. It talks about that God knew us before we were born. Every day of your life was recorded before a single day had passed. And so God knew everything that's going to happen to you before anything's ever happened. So, like, when something happens and you are shocked, it's not like God's going, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. Yeah. Oh no, what are we going to do about that? Like, God's like, no, I know I knew that was going to happen before we were even born. And we can take comfort in the fact that we serve a God who knows what's going to happen. And he's calling us into what's next. And it's really exciting, So, man, I just want to encourage you guys to not allow your past, or not allow what other people are saying about you because of your past, get in the way of what God has for you in the future.
Yeah. I think that's the tension that we always fight so much, and what I've experienced, even just in my time in ministry and following Jesus, where, Scripture is very clear. Like, we're always going to fall short of the glory of God. Like, we are never going to be perfect until we are in eternity in heaven with God. We won't. So while we're on this earth, the goal isn't to gain perfection and to walk with Jesus perfectly. The goal is to get as close as you can to him. And I think so much, like, there's going to be times where when you do fall short, people are going to call you out on it, and they're going to remind you of it consistently over and over again. And that's why I think it's so important that you have to focus on what God says and not lean on the approval of people. Like Miley Cyrus says, only God can judge me. Like really, like only God can judge me. I mean, there's some truth in some of her craziness, and I think it's such a cliche statement, but it's actual. Like, God can judge me. You're always going to be judged by people, but if you allow the judgment of people to direct your steps, then you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You're going to stay stuck in the boat with the other disciples. But if you trust Jesus, you trust God, you're going to be just as bold as Peter, and you're going to experience something that the other disciples didn't, and you're going to step out on water. You're going to have water walking faith and a water walking experience. And I think that's the tension that you fight is when you choose to either, hey, am I going to be with what everybody else says, or am I going to do what God is calling me to do? And I think that's where you have to wrestle with that and discover it for yourself, you know.
Well, thanks, guys, for joining in with us. We hope that you can have some great discussion. Guys, do not take these groups that you have for granted. We want you to be able to do life together. And that doesn't just mean that we want you to enjoy spending time together. It means we want you to be able to talk about life, what's going on in your lives. And so do not miss this opportunity to be honest and open with each other about what God is doing in your life, about the ways that maybe Satan's using your past against you to make you feel unqualified or ill-equipped to do what God's calling you to. Man, I just believe that if you guys really lean into these life group times and have open and honest discussions about where you're at, God is going to just blow your group away with the ways that He's going to use you. So I encourage you to open up with each other, trust each other. Yeah. This is a safe place that, you know, these people in this group aren't going to be sharing this stuff outside of the group. So just take this opportunity as it comes.
Yeah, and life group is just half the battle. Like, get here on a Friday night, get here on a Sunday night. There's something about when we all get together in a large space like this. Like, it's amazing. What you're missing out on it if you're not involved with that. So just want to encourage you, man, get here. Drag your life group leader with you. Like, come on, don't do this alone. I love it.
We love you guys, and excited to hear how God is just using you through this series and what He starts laying on your heart as we talk more about God sending us on mission for His kingdom. We'll see you guys.
Peace out.